provide a long-lasting solution to the peace problem? Again, sir. Do you think a charter change at this time will provide a long-lasting solution to the peace problem?
The members of the GRP panel tell us that, and this is also in the newspapers today, repeated by the press secretary, who used to be the head of the OPAP, the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process, which is now the position occupied by Mr. Esperon, that to accommodate the concept of an expanded autonomy, which is defined in the so-called organic law as amended, meaning the amended organic law for the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, which came out, I think, in the year 2002. A provision in the Constitution must be provided to accommodate that concept. That provision is not there yet. Whatever it is called, whether federalism or just expanded economy, if the amendment is just for that purpose, then maybe the majority of our people, because they will have to go into a plebiscite for that, may accept the one subject amendment limited to defining what is this expanded economy. But the fear of many people, and this also being expressed today by some opposition leaders, is that this will lead to so many other amendments, including amendment in regard to the form of government from presidential to parliamentary, which would open the door for you-know-who to come in again. Now, some of you may recall that as president, I was already asking for constitutional amendments, charter change. But I limited myself to transformation to parliamentary system, electoral reform, which needed constitutional change, and improvement of our party politics, especially defining what is meant by dynasty, prohibited in the 87 Constitution, but not defined, because it must be defined by law. But no laws, of course, have passed since 1987, because members of Congress themselves would be disadvantaged if the term dynasty is really defined. And also the definition of turncoatism, which must be provided by law, but no laws have come out in regard to dynastism and turncoatism. And then the last amendment I wanted was in regard to the protective provisions pertaining to the economy, the 60-40. Now, if the amendment is limited to that one issue, which is a definition of the expanded autonomy, or the BJE, then the majority of our people might accept that. But if you foist on everybody federalism right away, what will the people in Region 1, which is well established as a cluster of related, connected, interdependent provinces, what will you call Region 1? Republic of Ilocos, Slovakia, or Republic of the Independent Pangalatoks. Don't forget, the Ilocos and Pangasinan have histories of being separate republics during the time of Malong and Palaris. And the capital was in San Carlos City. So, again, looking at Region 1, where will be the capital? Will it be in Lawag, Bigan, San Fernando, Lingayen? You are already inherently, organically putting in the seeds of controversy just by talking about federal. So what I'm saying is, call it what it should be and define it in an amendment. But it must be limited to just that. The other things that I talk about, parliamentary system and dynasties and economic provisions, maybe can come in the next round, meaning after 2010. It's too late now because unfortunately the administration did not pick up my suggestion in July 2005. Remember the time? The so-called Day of Reckoning? 10 people abandoned ship. Then one lady abandoned ship. And then one member of the Senate, very high-ranking, abandoned ship. Nakalimutan ninyo, no? July 8th, 2005 was the exact date. I was suggesting the following day, all throughout that 6-month period, now is the time for Congress to go into the Constituent Assembly. But to speed up the process, the House of Representatives should nominate and then appoint 7 elders of the nation to provide advice. 7 people already made, and I even mentioned some names. Cesar Birata, UP alumnus. Gabriel Singson, UP undergraduate. Etc. I said, hindi na ako kasama kasi I'm the one making this suggestion. 7 lamang. Now what happened? A 50-member consultative commission was appointed, headed by a former UP president. And with due respect to that 50-man CONCOM, as they called it, I think they did a good job. They submitted a report before the deadline. And it talked about all of these things we're talking about. But nothing came out of that. Unfortunately, one of the most controversial provisions in their proposal was no elections in 2007, and therefore the extension of term limits of everybody who was an incumbent elected official. Well, that did not take, unfortunately. But let's commend them for making a big effort. Bakit parliamentary? Because when there is a need to change the government, meaning the Prime Minister and his cabinet, and they're all members of Parliament, the change or the regime can be swept away through a simple no confidence vote of Parliament. We saw India go through that only 2 weeks ago. But the Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, won a confidence vote. So it's still there. We saw it in Japan 2 years ago. Prime Minister Koizumi put before the electorate his administration. And the issue was privatization of the postal service. And he won it. And he was the Prime Minister. But we are also seeing different stories in other countries where in a confidence vote, the sitting government, the Prime Minister especially, did not win it. So why is that important to us? Because that simple constitutional procedure does not involve the participation of the armed forces and the national police. Unlike here, sure, we had EDSA 1, EDSA 2, but it had to take pulling together, pulling in, pulling towards you. If you are a rebel, the support of the armed forces of the Philippines. Suppose it did not happen that way, and there was a 20%, 80% division in February 1986 or in January 2001, and not 99% versus 1%. We would still be in a civil war situation today, believe me. Besides, presidential elections, senatorial elections, which are at large, are so expensive. How much did Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong spend to become Prime Minister of Singapore? I asked him because we were playing golf about 4 years ago. He said, "Oh, I didn't spend much because I'm working only with an electorate of 26,000 people. That's his constituency. But of course," he said, "I have to be the leader of my party. But that's 150 people. I didn't have to campaign Singapore-wide," he said, "small as it is." So I asked him, "You mean to tell me, Mr. Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong, my little town of Asingan, Pangasinan, has more voters than you have in your constituency? And you are now the Prime Minister of Singapore? For 12 years, you were Prime Minister?" He said, "That is because you like to copy the Americans and copied and even improved on their presidential system because their senators are not elected nationwide. Their presidents are not elected by popular vote. You do it. That's why your elections are so expensive." You know, these are some of the things that were the valid issues during the debate on charter change since 1905. But now, you cannot talk about those things now because it will always be related to 2010. But if you want to talk about the peace agreement or peace process in Mindanao, if you limit it just to that issue of what is the definition of BJE and ancestral domain, then maybe it will be adopted or voted upon favorably by the majority of the Filipino voters in a plebiscite.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry I had to give a very long answer to that short question.
Yes, we are.
But I had to mention my hometown, Asingan, Pangasinan.
Well, we are running a bit late, so we have one question from UP Mindanao. Moderator is Dr. Sylvia Concepcion.
Thank you. Our question is from Tony Bokiren of the City Government of Davao.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My father is from Malasiki, Pangasinan, but I was born and I grew up here in Mindanao. The MNLF and the MILF are two different groups, each claiming to represent the Bangsamoro people in Mindanao. My question is this: which of the two might really be the true representative of the Bangsamoro people of Mindanao?
The MNL.
I'm sorry I did not bring my hearing aid today.